Hello, this is your captain speaking. Welcome to page 17 in our polynomial flipbook. We are going to be talking about factoring trinomials today. Holy smokes, we just entered big time territory. You thought what we were doing earlier this week was something? Well, this is it. Factoring trinomials. You are going to do that so much in your recent, in your upcoming future, and even in your far out future, because it keeps coming up again and again and again. You're going to do this all through Algebra 2. You're going to do this all through college algebra, pre-calc, calc. You do this all the time. Basically, you being able to do this really, really well right now, it's going to help you a lot in your future. So I'd recommend practicing it until you get really good at it, because it's kind of challenging at first and it's really, really important. I've already written down our first 4 steps here. To factoring any quadratic trinomial. Trinomial, ooh, that means 3 terms. Here's an example. Number 1, we're going to list the factors of AC. A times C. 2, we're going to circle the pair that adds up to B. 3, we're going to rewrite the BX term as a factored pair. 4, we are going to factor by grouping. Okay. I also want to point out what all this means. This is standard form of a quadratic trinomial. We see quadratics as trinomials a lot. This is normally how we see them. And we want to be able to break them down into binomials so we can use our zero product property, right? Which is what all this stuff, all these steps is about us being able to do. And you'll notice we have like 4 steps on the last lesson. Well, step 4 is getting to those 4 steps, okay? So there's several steps here that we need to know and get good at. Also, what is this where A doesn't equal 0? Well, if A equals 0 here, this obviously goes away. 0 times anything is 0. That would make this linear. We don't want something that's linear. This doesn't work on linear things. It only works on quadratic things. So we need this little caveat here. Okay, so let's try it. List factors of AC. Well, this says A times C, right? Well, here's A. It's the number in front of x squared. And here's C. It's the number that's at the end. So I am going to say that A times C equals 2 times 15 is 30. Now it wants me to list all the factors I could think of. So like 1 times 30. I could do -1 times -30. I could do -2 times -15. I could, of course, do 2 times 15. I could do 3 times 10. I could do -3 times 10. I could do 5 times 6. I can do -5 times -6. Then it wants me to circle the pair that adds up to B. Well, B here is 11, or -11. So here, this adds up to -11 right here. And then we're going to use that to do our next things, okay? But what I'm going to say is I want to pause. I've probably already showed you the X method in class. And I'm going to say use X method. So I prefer for these first 2 steps to use the X method. You can do this every time, okay? This works every time. If this works for your brain better, then use this. My first year of teaching algebra, I only taught my students how to do this, and they did just fine. But I think the X method is a little bit faster. And that is where we draw an X on our paper. I'm going to make a note up here. We draw an X on our paper, and we write A times oh my goodness, I can't believe I just wrote a B. A times C on top, and we write B on bottom. And then we are looking for something I can multiply that makes AC, and something I can add that makes B. Then we can just use our brilliant minds to figure this out, and we don't have to write all this stuff out, because you can come up with this without writing down every factor of it. If you can't, then write down all the factors. This is here for you to remember that I can do this really long process if I can't think of it. But I think we could think of this. So AB, or AC, list our factors of AC. So AC goes on top. 2 times 15, well, that's 30. That goes on top. And B goes on bottom. Okay, so now that we've got this, we need to come up with something times something that equals 30, but adds up to negative 11. And we, of course, already know what it is. Negative 5 times negative 6 adds up to 30, or multiplied together equals 30, but added up to be 11. And what is the whole point of this thing? It is to be able to do step 3, and that is to rewrite the BX term as a factored pair. Okay, so we wanted to get something that we'll be able to use factor by grouping, but is still going to equal this. I want to break this down. And of course I could break this down however, but it's not helpful for factor by grouping unless I do it in a very specific way, unless I come up with a factor of AC that's going to give me out that distributive property look that we want. So I'm going to have 2x squared. We're not going to write minus 11x anymore. We're going to write minus 5x's minus 6x's. What is minus 5x minus 6x? Oh, that's negative 11x, isn't it? Okay, and I could write these in either order, and that's not going to matter. It's going to look differently when I factor it by grouping, but it's going to give me the same answer. It'll just have A and B plus C switched around. Okay, and finally, I still have this plus 15. Now, you should be able to stop here and say, I can go back up here, right? If I put this together, I'm right back where I started. I've done no damage, okay? So you should be able to stop at this point and say that to yourself. Okay, now we're going to factor by grouping. And I'm going to call this plus this. That's going to keep me from making the same mistake I made on the last unit. Now we're factoring by grouping. What can I pull out of here? Well, it's just an x, right? And I'm left with 2x minus 5. And what can I pull out of here? Well, I can pull out, I need this to be a negative, so I'm going to pull out a negative. I can pull out a oops, and I didn't leave myself room. I can pull out a 3. And then I'm left with 2x minus 5. And now we can rewrite this. X minus 3 and 2x minus 5. And I've been writing A in front, but it doesn't matter, right? Either order's fine. We found our A, and we've got our B plus C. Let's check to make sure we did this right, especially since we had to do this funky little thing in here. If I do 2x times x, I get 2x squared. If I do negative 5 times x, I get negative 5x. If I do negative 3 times 2x, I get my negative 6x. And if I do negative 3 times negative 5, I get my plus 15. And if I regroup this, then I am right back where I started. So it's always super easy to check now that we're really good at the FOIL method if we did it correct or not. So if you're ready, go ahead and pause. If you need to just keep going with me, that is just fine as well. Okay, so let's try it. I am going to use my X method this time. A times C. A is 1 times 10 is 10. I love when A is 1. That makes these so much easier. B is negative 7. So 10, or what times what gives me 10, but equals negative 7. I'm guessing that these are both going to be negatives, since a negative times a negative equals a positive, but a negative plus a negative equals a negative. But if you just start thinking, 1 times 10 is 10. Well, 11's not right. Negative 1 times negative 10, negative 11's not right. Well, how about negative 2 times negative 5 is 10. Negative 2 times plus negative 5 is negative 7. There it is. We've done it. Okay, so we've got our two ideas here that we're going to change this to. Now I've got x squared. Instead of writing negative 7x, I've got negative 2x and negative 5x plus 10. If you'd prefer to write this plus negative 5x, that'll work as well. That might make this next step a little bit easier for you as well. So we're going to group it. Whenever this is a negative, I'm kind of putting that inside. And here we go. I can pull out an x, and I'm left with x minus 2 plus minus, sorry, because I'm going to pull out a negative here, minus my 5. So 5 is my GCF, x minus 2. Ooh, good. And I get x minus 2 and x minus 5, my B plus C. And I'm done. Now, check this out. If A is 1, we can skip to here. Do you see why? This and this. This and this. So once you've done your x method, if A is 1, you can skip down here. Okay? So just a quick note. If A is 1, we can skip from here to here once you're comfortable with it, okay? You can always do this if you're more comfortable doing it that way. We are doing our x method again. Notice this. This is an A, and we don't have a B. We don't have something times x. So that makes this a C. So I've got 4 times negative 9, and that is negative 36. And my B is 0, because I don't have a B. Okay, I need something times something that gives me negative 36, but when I add them together, they give me 0. I hope that's really easy for you. That is negative 6 and 6, because negative 6 times 6 is negative 36, but negative 6 plus 6 is 0. Okay, we're ready to rewrite our bx term, and I get 4m squared minus 6m plus 6m minus 9. Is what I have here the same as what I have here? Yes, because these two things would cancel themselves out. Okay, so we're doing well. Now, my GCF of the coefficients, well, that's 2. My GCF of the variables, that gives me m. I'm left with 2m minus 3. And I have plus, the GCF here is 3m minus, 2m minus 3. And now I've got my A times the quantity of B plus C. And there we go. And now we can check, right? And of course these things are going to cancel themselves out, right? And we're just left with this thing right here. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Now we are going to solve quadratics by factoring. So we've thrown in this equals 0. And we are going to, it is a trinomial, so we are going to do our factoring trinomials method. Here we go. Let's see if we can do it. I'm going to start with my x method. And I've got a times c, negative 3 times positive 3 times negative 8. That gives me a negative 24. And my b goes down here. It is 2. Now I'm going to ask myself what times what gives me this, but adds up to be this. This is going to be a negative times a positive, obviously. I think that this is going to be negative 4 and 6. Negative 4 times 6 gives me negative 24. But when I add them together, I get a positive 2. If that took you a lot longer than it took me, that's okay. That's because you're not the math teacher, right? If you need to go through a list of factors either in your head or on a piece of paper, that is just fine, okay? But don't say, I can't get it, because anybody can list all the factors, right? What times what equals this? Go until you can't come up with any more, and then circle the ones that add together to give you 2. Okay, now we're rewriting, and I've got 3y squared minus 4y plus 6y, and I still have this minus 8 equals 0. So notice this is exactly the same as what I have here, except we've broken this down. We've rewritten this a little bit differently, but if I combine like terms, I'm right back to this. Okay, now we're pulling out a GCF. The only GCF I have here is y. I'm left with 3y minus 4. Again, if you're starting to get this, you don't need me. You are pausing and trying it on your own, yes? And then coming back to see how I did it. Plus, I can factor out a 2 here, and I get 3y minus 4. And that should be really exciting for us because this and this are exactly the same. So I can rewrite this as 3y minus 4 times b plus c, y plus 2 equals 0. Now I just need to figure out what makes this 0 and what makes this 0, okay? If you need to rewrite that down like this, you can. Well, in this case, I'm going to add 4, divide by 3, and I get y equals 4 thirds. Don't mess this step up, please. If you need to show adding 4 and dividing by 3 at this point to make sure you get it right, please do, because that's a shame to be able to do all this stuff and not get that right. And this is y equals negative 2. So I'm subtracting 2 from both sides. So there are my 2 answers. Final one to do with me. I'm going to do my x method. A times c, 1 times 25 is 25. And my b is negative 10. Okay, what times what gives me positive 25 but gives me negative 10? Well, these are both going to be negative because I'm going to need a negative times a negative to equal a positive that's going to add up to this. Well, would that be negative 5 times negative 5 is 25, but if I add them together, it gives me negative 10. Perfect. So you can jump down from here if you're ready to, right? Because we already said we know what this is going to look like, and this is going to be a cool case, actually. But I'm going to show you the whole process. So I've got minus 5c minus 5c plus 25 equals 0. This is the same thing, except I've rewritten it. And now I am factoring by grouping. I'm going to put my plus sign here. And I get c minus 5 plus, and I always do that, I don't know why, minus, and I'm going to pull out a 5, and I've got c minus 5, because I pulled out a negative 5, right? Okay, this still equals 0. Oh, and look what I have when I regroup this. C minus 5 times C minus 5. We knew that that was going to look like that, though, because C equaled 1. So we knew that we were going to be able to come down and it was going to look like this. I'm going to do one more thing. Since this and this are the same, I'm going to call this C minus 5 squared equals 0. Now, whatever makes this inside 0 is going to be my only solution. Okay, this is going to be my only solution, because if I put 5 here or I put 5 here, 5 is the solution to both of these. So I can't have the number 5 twice, right? So what makes this 0? Well, when C equals 5, then I have 0. That is what makes my zero product property true. And I'm sorry, that was off the screen there. Okay? Well, let me know if you have any questions. You're just going to have to practice this. I know this was a lot. This was maybe confusing, obviously, for the first time, but once you practice and practice and practice it, all of a sudden next year, this is going to be like easy. And then you're going to be doing harder stuff, obviously. And then you're going to come back to this and you're like, oh, thank goodness. This is like home base, right? This is the easy stuff. So right now it's really hard. It will get easier though. So I want you to go ahead and try this on the next page. You are doing the 6 that is just doing the factoring trinomials process. And then you are going to try applying the zero product property. Let me know if you have any questions and enjoy.